So you should be live and broadcasting to the world.
To the world. To the 14 people.
To the millions watching around the world.
This is going to get tens of views.
All set, right? Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our May 9th board meeting. We are going to call to order, and I will start with a reading of the Open Public Meeting Statement. So the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the rights of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies, at which time any business affecting their interests is discussed and acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this Act and Board of Education Policy 0162, the Board of Education of the Borough of Bound Brook has caused notice of this meeting to be posted in the board office at Bound Brook High School and mailed or faxed to the Courier News, Bound Brook Borough Clerk, South Bound Brook Board of Education, and any person who has requested individual notice and paid the required fee. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can we do a roll call, please?
Mr. Vale.
Here.
Mr. Fazio. Ms. Casino.
Yes.
Mr. Januzzi.
Yes.
Ms. Lima.
Here.
Mr. Minhas.
Here.
Ms. Musan.
Here.
Ms. Russolano. Mr. Zupko.
Here.
And Mr. Dawson.
Here. Very good. I will keep my opening comments brief. We actually just got out of a really interesting meeting for our operations committee. I was fortunate enough to be contacted by Councilman Longo following our last meeting, and we had a chance to sit down with the Borough Finance Committee, so Councilman Gomez and Longo, and we actually had a really interesting conversation. Again, I'll go through that, I think, when we get more into the operations committee, but it was a positive first step. So a conversation among many, and I was thankful to have Roger and Sydney there with me. I think we all learned a lot. I wanted to give a quick shout out to the Drama Club. I don't know how many of you actually were able to attend and see Sioux School the Musical over the weekend. I personally saw it twice. It was even better the second time, gotta say it. But I thought they did a really fantastic job. I thought that the community was here and supporting them. It was great to see everybody here again for a play after a few years off during the pandemic. And the kids did a phenomenal job, and just want to make sure that gets understood and recognized. The last thing that I will mention, and again, I'll get into this more in committee reports, we had a proposal exchange with the BBEA. We actually did it virtually last Wednesday. I think it was a good and healthy opening discussion. It gave a chance for both sides to see who was part of each negotiating team. Clearly a lot of work to be done before we're in a place where both sides are really happy and satisfied. But I'm happy that that has actually begun to make progress, and looking forward to working with everybody on it along the way. And that is it for my president's comments. Dr. Gallagher, for your superintendent's report, anything to add?
Yeah, the only thing I want to make you aware is please check your email, board members. I sent you a link to the new website as well as a document with some questions that were posed from board members that went out to the PR firm and the website company. They put some responses in there and, you know, a list of some of the things they did change in response to those questions. So the big thing though is if you guys can really take a good, strong look at the layout of the website, not necessarily content, but the layout of the website, and give me any feedback that you have by Wednesday. That would be greatly appreciated, because we're hoping to have the layout complete by the end of this week, and then move on, transition into make sure we get all the other sites up for all the schools, and make sure we get all of those things in place, and hopefully have a finished product sometime mid-June.
Now, the one question that I had to ask you on that is we talked about doing focus groups potentially with some parents and other users. Is that not going to be possible on this timeline?
No, that's included in this timeline. I think that the big thing right now is that we need to get the okay on the layout, the format, and then we could, I would say 3 or 4 school sites are already built out. So it's just a couple more. And then from there, like I said, the focus groups we can do once all that stuff is done. And like I said, have a finish. Again, we're not going live with this product until July 1. So, you know, we'd like to have a finished product out for focus groups, like I said, early to mid-June.
Okay, and my only concern would be that if we find something through the focus group process that actually affects the format, then we're multiplying the amount of work that it takes to revise it or locking ourselves into design detail. So I just want to make sure we're not shooting ourselves in the foot by running too fast.
I don't think we are. I think, with the comments that we received so far from administration and board members that we've addressed quite a bit. I'm not sure there's really anything out there that we kind of missed in terms of layout. I think right now, pretty confident that I think the layout is exactly what we had talked about and what we wanted to see and the vision that we had. Obviously this week will be the confirmation of that. And if we do have issues, obviously that timeline is going to change from that point.
Okay. All right. Anything else you want to add, Dan?
No, I'm good. That's it. Thank you.
Members, any questions for Dr. Gallagher?
I'm good.
All right. We are on to committee reports. So I believe we have notes in here from the last education committee meeting, but we actually covered those during the last board meeting, right? Governance the same way. We haven't met since the last board meeting, correct, Lisa?
Correct.
Mike?
I don't think any of the committees have met since the last meeting.
Yeah, the only thing that I will add is for human resources, obviously, we had the committee together, we exchanged proposals. Next steps on that, we're gonna meet as a group again tomorrow afternoon, right?
Yes.
And then we have another meeting with the Education Association. Hopefully at that point, the opportunity to ask some clarifying questions, understand the intent of a variety of different things proposed on both sides, and just, further that discussion. So I expect that group is going to actively be meeting probably on a weekly basis until we get to a place where we're all pretty comfortable, unless we hit some kind of an impasse that causes us to break off negotiations. On the operations side, I think, the only color that I would add, and Roger or Sydney, if you guys want to interject anything here, feel free. We spoke about really coming from a place of understanding in terms of the impact on maybe decisions that were being made for the town by the council, decisions that were going to be made by the school board. And I think what we wanted to impress upon everybody was the idea that regardless of whether taxes go up or down because of decisions we make in the schools or decisions we make at the town level, the taxpayer is a person and they have a particular point of view. So we just want to make sure that decisions are made in an informed way, that everybody understands the impact of what those decisions are going to be, and then to potentially start to look at some of what's happening in both cases and see where we might be able to partner better to better effect, whether that's creating economies of scale through better shared services agreements, whether it's shared strategy in terms of how we're approaching the improvements throughout the town and the district, the impact that the assessment of our schools has on the town's ability to bring in new and different people and populations, attract people to the town, and vice versa, how development brings in different populations to the town and how it ultimately affects our work here on the school district side. We did talk a bit about pilot agreements, and while I don't want to get into copious amounts of detail because I'm still learning a bit myself, I think one of the things that we wanted to impress upon everybody was the idea that the school funding formula includes information on the town's valuation and median income, and how as those metrics improve, the expectation would be that our local fair share is going to increase to some extent to compensate. And that pilot programs in general are basically deferring some of that compensation for the community to give incentives to developers to have them come in and do the work that we want them to do. And so we just want to make sure that we don't inadvertently create a crisis point where our New Jersey state funding starts to decrease while we are still in a place where we're not seeing significant revenues as a town from these new developments and the developers. And in brief, what I think I can say is that those points were well understood and appreciated. And I don't think there's any ill will or intent to create that conflict where we might be potentially underfunded or have to look to the taxpayers to provide significant additional assistance. But going through that process in a thoughtful and a meaningful way, and in a coordinated way, I think is something that everybody identified as high value.
I think to piggyback, I want to first of all thank the members of the city council as well as Mr. Januzzi. I appreciate that for pulling this together. I think the big takeaway that I had was an open dialogue and communication and an understanding of various points that were unclear. And I think that if we can continue this open dialogue and this transparent communication between both entities, I think it's the beautiful thing about it is it's not just one-sided. It'll benefit both town. We are part of the town is part of us. So it's a symbiotic relationship. So, but I'm very, very excited that this meeting occurred, and I am nothing but I'm just tremendously very, very positive for our future meetings.
Thanks.
I would agree. It's very positive dialogue. Looking forward to keeping it going.
Yeah, definitely excited about hearing that there's communication between the board and the council. We need to keep that going, keep the rhythm going of like we're all in it together, right? Like what's good for all of us is good for the town, good for the school. Yeah. it's great.
Absolutely. So we've tentatively penciled in another meeting about 2 weeks from today, just to keep the conversation going and maybe transit it from some of these philosophical conversations into more tangible things that we could actually work on, focus towards, or start to partner.
Rich, one of the original pilots was Meridian, which was 30 years. What year are we on now?
Great question. I don't know the answer to that, but I will tell you that among the conversation that we had, we did talk about how there were initially 30-year pilots done and how that is not the standard operating procedure for future pilots from there. So they can be a variety of things, anywhere from 30 to 10 years. And I think what was impressed upon us was at this point, most of the pilots are geared towards either 10, 15, or 20 years. And there are shades of gray in between in terms of how quickly these developers start to pay taxes and at what rate. So all good and positive things there, I believe. Any other questions or comments? Yeah. Lisa, I don't think there was a meeting of the Educational Services Commission since, correct?
No, not until next quarter.
Very good. I believe we are open to the public for agenda items only at this point. Do we have?
No questions on it.
Thank you, sir. Any questions from the room? All right. I'm not seeing anybody run up to the microphone. So we are up to regular business, number 5 here, approval of the minutes. So resolved that the Bound Board of Education approves the minutes for the following meetings, regular and executive meetings minutes for April 25th, 2022. I'm not going to look in your direction, but Michelle's not here, so no pressure. Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you, Mr. Powell. May I have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Lisa.
Mr. Dawson?
Dawson, I apologize.
And a second, that was Mr. Zeno.
You got it. Any discussion? Sorry, I'm going to stick with Sydney from now on. You're good with that, right? All right, can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Bell,
Yes.
Ms. Casino,
Yes.
Mr. Januzzi,
Yes.
Ms. Lima,
Yes.
Mr. Minhas,
Yes.
Ms. Musan,
I have to abstain.
Mr. Zupko,
Yes.
and Mr. Dawson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Very good. We are up to number 6, personnel resolutions for the district and high school. Resolved that the superintendent recommends for approval the resolutions as outlined in personnel resolutions under district and high school. This is 6.2 through 6.many.
13.
6.2 through 6.13. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you, Mr. Powell. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Zupko. Discussion?
I have a question on the 6.9, the job description of assistant superintendent.
Mhm.
So it says facilities and operations. So that's not the same as like director of buildings and grounds? How does that differ from
That's gonna be more of an overseeing of not only the facilities, but also any construction and things like that. We have some construction projects coming up.
So it adds the construction, not so
Yeah.
much, okay.
I think the difference would be probably more day-to-day supervision
Mhm.
and depth of knowledge of building and grounds versus overall administrative and project management support.
Okay, so the buildings would be more day-to-day, director of building and grounds is more day-to-day?
Correct.
And then the facilities and operations, okay.
And I have a question. Does 6.9 interfere with 6.2?
It does not, they're independent.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Bale,
Yes.
Ms. Gazino,
Yes.
Mr. Januzzi,
Yes.
Ms. Lima,
Yes, with an abstention on 6.6, abstaining from line item, Allison Thiessen.
okay? Noted. Mr. Minhas,
Yes.
Ms. Musama,
Yes.
Mr. Zupko,
Yes.
Mr. Dawson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We are up to number 7, approval of middle and elementary personnel resolutions. Resolved that the superintendent recommends for approval the resolutions as outlined in personnel resolutions under middle and elementary schools. This is 7.2. Through 7.19. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you, Mr. Bowell. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Vizino. Discussion? Hearing none, can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Bale,
Yes.
Ms. Gazino,
Yes.
Mr. Januzzi,
Yes.
Ms. Lima,
Abstain.
Mr. Minhas,
Yes, but I have to abstain on 7.9.
noted. Ms. Musama,
Yes.
Mr. Zupko,
Yes.
and Mr. Dawson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
We are up to section 8. Resolved that the Bound Brook Board of Education approves the resolutions as outlined in education resolutions under district and high school. This is 8.2 through 8.8. May I have a motion? Thank you, Ms. Musson. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Zucker. Discussion? Agreed.
Do you want me to bring up something now, or you want me to wait until later?
Bring up something.
We got a special broadcast at the DOE today.
Bring it up now.
Yeah, feel
Bring
free.
it up now.
Go ahead.
Okay, just because you brought up field trips, we got a memo from DOE. I would anticipate some higher COVID numbers coming out shortly, because they're reminding us of that when we hit the red, some of the things that we need to do. So obviously, they have more data at their fingertips than we do, so I'm just anticipating that some regions of the state are probably going to hot red coming up shortly. But yes, field trips are back. and we're letting them run. We're gonna let them run as long as we can.
Yeah.
Roll call?
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none. Yes, please, roll call.
Mr. Bale,
Yes.
Ms. Gazino,
Yes.
Mr. Januzzi,
Yes.
Ms. Lima,
Yes.
Mr. Minhas,
Yes.
Ms. Musson,
Yes.
Mr. Zupko,
Yes.
Mr. Dawson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
We're up to 9.1, approval of middle and elementary education resolutions. Resolved that the Bound Brook Board of Education approves the resolutions as outlined in education resolutions under middle and elementary schools. This is 9.2 through 9.5. May I have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you, Sydney. A second? Thank you, Ms. Musson. Discussion.
I'm jealous they're going to the zoo.
I do have one question, and it's more for curiosity. The fifth grade trip for math, statistics, and averages. Are they going to a baseball game?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Is that what that is?
yeah. I'll be there too. My sixth grade trip is also that same day and that same year. We're
Nice.
also doing math, statistics and averages.
Yep.
Well, you would actually know then.
Wait, you're in
They're-
sixth grade?
they're
Are you in sixth grade?
I'm in sixth grade.
Just not here. That's great. I'm gonna pick your brain about that after the meeting. I won't delay this. Okay, any other comments or questions about section 9? Can we have a roll call, please?
Sure. Mr. Val?
Yes,
Ms. Gazino?
Yes.
Mr. Janussi?
Yes.
Ms. Lima?
Abstain.
Mr. Minhaus?
Yes.
Ms. Munson? Mr. Zuko?
Yes.
Mr. Dawson?
Yes.
Motion carries.
We are up to section 10. This is the district and high school policy resolutions. Resolved that the Bound Brook Board of Education approves the resolutions as outlined in policy resolutions under district and high school. This is 10.2. May I have a motion?
motion.
Thank you, Mr. Bob. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Guzino. Any discussion?
Yes. On P2415.04, Title I district-wide parent and family engagement, I think it would be great if we could show how the district is responding to this policy. So in other words, when we talk about how we're engaging parents, how we're engaging them in their students' performance, in their
We do that twice a year. We do an annual parent meeting,
Okay,
2 times per year, once in October and again, closer to the end of the school year in June.
so,
And then there are parent committees in each building,
okay,
from kindergarten through 8th grade that also participate in stakeholder conversations.
okay, so you feel that that follows this policy?
Yes, it's all, yeah, and that's what the policy actually does, is it outlines
Okay,
all that we do in district to keep parents informed.
okay,
Mhm.
okay, great. That was my only question.
Very good. Any other questions or comments?
In light of the terrible news that came from the DOA, would the record-keeping, healthcare settings and school buildings, COVID, I guess that would all be subject to executive orders? Should we have to go back that way? Yes. Okay.
Can we just get through?
Does that also apply for the safety plan? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are there any additional state aid measures planned to offset the costs that are associated with each of these changes?
No.
For the record. Any other comments or questions? All right, can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Bell?
Yes,
Ms. Gazino?
Yes.
Mr. Janussi?
Yes.
Ms. Lima?
Yes.
Mr. Minhaus?
Yes.
Ms. Munson?
Yes.
Mr. Zuko?
Yes.
And Mr. Dawson?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We are up to section 11. Resolve the Bound Brook Board of Education approves the resolutions as outlined in financial resolutions. This is 11.2 through 11.9. Have a motion?
motion.
I'm gonna give it to,
You do.
we're gonna give it to Edith, and we'll let Mike be the second. Comments or discussion?
Thank you for the donations.
Yes. Staples, Costco.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, hearing none, can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Bell?
Yes,
Ms. Gazino?
Yes.
Mr. Janussi?
Yes.
Ms. Lima?
Yes.
Mr. Minhaus?
Yes.
Ms. Munson?
Yes.
Mr. Zuko?
Yes.
Mr. Dawson?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, we are up to other matters to come before the board, which I don't believe we have any, which puts us in new business. Is there anything that any of the members want to raise at this time? The only thing that I will say, and I apologize, I probably should have included it in either my president's comments or any other time when I was rambling during this meeting. Dr. Freeman is again here with us this evening. He has started some work to transition into the district, so he's been here at least for the last few weeks, a couple of times per week. We expect that to persist through the end of the school year as he gets himself up to speed, meeting with administrators, teachers, principals, everybody that really he needs to talk to in order to do a good and informed job starting on July 1st. So I don't want to downplay the excitement. I think we had a lot of good news to share tonight, but that was one of the bigger news items I wanted to make sure everybody was aware of.
Thank you, Rich.
At this point, we are open to the public for discussion.
There are no items online.
Great. Mr. Paxton.
Hello, Lauren Paxton, President of the Education Association. When did we stop giving or sending out the COVID positive letters?
Would it have coincided with
It
the,
coincided probably with the
Mask
mask coming off and
mandate.
everything else.
I'm sorry?
I think nominally the answer is that it coincided with when the mask mandate was withdrawn by the governor. I don't have an exact date for you, you have to check on that.
Is there any way that we can continue that? Other districts still do that. Other districts still contact trace and all that. Is there, because we had a increase the past 2 weeks and the stakeholders had no knowledge of this. Being a parent, if I knew that, I would, I'd maybe more inclined to tell my kid to at least wear the masks in the hallway setting, something like that. But if they don't have knowledge, how are we going to prepare and defend ourselves?
It's a fair suggestion, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay. I believe we are into executive session. Dr. Gallagher, can you confirm? We are under 1, 3, and 1, 2, and 3? Or is it 1, 3, and 5?
No, seven.
No, it's 1, 2, and 3.
I thought so. So may I have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you, Mr. Bowell, second. Second. Thank you, Mr. Zupko, all in favor?
Aye. Let's go.
You're unmuted and good to go.
Excellent.
Thank you.
We are back in session. 16.1, resolve the Bound Brook Board of Education approves the resolutions as outlined in approval of HIB cases under high school. This is 16.2. I have a motion.
Motion.
Thank you, Mr. Bowles, second.
Second,
Thank you, Ms. Rosino. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Bale,
Yes.
Ms. Gazino,
yes.
Mr. Januzzi,
Yes.
Ms. Lima,
Yes.
Mr. Minhas,
Yes.
Ms. Munson,
Abstain.
Mr. Zupko,
Yes.
and Mr. Dawson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. 17.1, resolve the Bound Brook Board of Education approves the resolutions as outlined in approval of HIB cases under middle and elementary schools. This is 17.2 and 17.3. Have a motion?
Motion.
Thank you, Mr. Bowles, second.
Second,
Giving it to
give
Danny.
it to Danny.
Roll call?
Mr. Bale,
Yes.
Ms. Gazino,
Yes.
Mr. Januzzi,
Yes.
Ms. Lima,
Abstain.
Mr. Minhas,
Yes.
Ms. Munson,
Abstain from 17.2. Yes to 17.
Mr. Zupko,
Yes.
and Mr. Dawson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. I will now entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Thank you, Mr. Bowles, second.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Lima. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Have a good evening.